two corrupt cops thought their sworn testimony was the perfect lie, but they had no idea that the young public defender questioning them wasn't there to defend a client. She was there to arrest them. The air in the small county courthouse was thick with a lazy afternoon heat. On one side of the prosecution table sat two deputies, Miller and Davis. They were the picture of confidence, whispering jokes to each other, their uniforms crisp, their badges gleaming. They had a story, a simple one, and they were sticking to it. On the other side sat Sarah Jenkins. To anyone looking, she was the textbook definition of a new, overwhelmed public defender. She was young. Her suit was from a department store, and she clutched her legal pad as if it were a life raft. Next to her sat her client, David Foster, a quiet mechanic accused of drug possession and resisting arrest. His face was a mask of weary resignation, the look of a man who had already been found guilty by the system long before he ever set foot in court. The prosecutor, a man named Henderson, was practically pining. He saw an easy win, another notch on his belt. The judge, a man nearing retirement, looked impatient, eager to get this minor case over with. Henderson announced the prosecution calls Officer Miller to the stand. Officer Miller, the larger and more intimidating of the two deputies, swaggered to the witness stand. He took the oath with an air of practiced ease. Henderson led him through the testimony. It was clean, simple, and damning. "We received an anonymous tip about suspicious activity," Miller stated. "Upon arriving, we saw the defendant, Mr. Foster, attempting to hide a small package under his car seat. When we approached, he became belligerent and resisted our attempts to secure the package, which was later found to contain illegal narcotics." It was a perfect story. Too perfect. From her seat, Sarah Jenkins watched, her expression a careful construction of nervous concentration. No one in that room could see the cold, calculating mind working behind her eyes. No one knew that she wasn't just a public defender, she was a hunter, and she had just walked into the lion's den willingly. "The prosecution rests, Your Honor," Henderson said with a flourish. He sat down, a smug smile on his face. The judge looked at Sarah. "Your witness, counselor." Sarah stood up, taking a slow breath as if to steady her nerves. She walked towards the witness stand. "Officer Miller," she began, her voice soft. "Thank you for your testimony. I just have a few small details I'd like to clarify." Miller smirked. "Happy to help, counselor. You stated that you received an anonymous tip. At what time did this tip come in?" "Around 10:15 p.m., Miller answered without hesitation. "And you were in your patrol car with Deputy Davis at the time?" "That's correct. The report says you were patrolling near the old warehouse district on 3rd Street when the call came in. Is that right?" "Yes, that's right." Sarah paused, looking at her notes. "It's just, that's a bit strange, officer, because dispatch logs, which I've subpoenaed, show that your vehicle's GPS placed you on the other side of town near the interstate at 10:15 p.m. In fact, you didn't arrive in the warehouse district until 10:42 p.m. The smirk on Miller's face vanished. A flicker of confusion crossed his eyes. "Well, GPS can be faulty sometimes. We were in the district." "I see," Sarah said, making a note. "So the official timestamp dispatch log is wrong, but your memory is correct." The prosecutor stood up. "Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is badgering the witness." "I'll allow it," the judge said, now leaning forward with a newfound interest. "Answer the question, officer." Miller shifted in his seat. I'm certain about where we were." "Okay," Sarah said, moving on. "Let's talk about the arrest itself. You said my client became belligerent. Could you describe this belligerence?" "He was yelling, refusing to comply with our commands." "Yelling what exactly?" I don't recall the exact words. He was being aggressive." "Aggressive?" Sarah repeated. "Your Honor, I'd like to play the audio from Officer Miller's body camera." Starting from the moment he exited his vehicle, the audio began to play. The courtroom was silent, listening to the recording. They heard the officers approaching. They heard David Foster's calm, confused voice, asking, "Is there a problem, officers?" They heard Miller's voice, loud and commanding, "Put your hands on the car now." They heard Foster ask, "Why? What did I do?" But they heard no yelling, no belligerence, only a calm man asking questions and two officers growing increasingly agitated. When the audio ended, Sarah looked at Miller. "Officer, I couldn't hear any yelling from my client. Could you point out the belligerence for the court?" Miller's face was turning red. "He was non-compliant. That's a form of aggression." "So asking a question is now aggression," Sarah pressed. "Refusing to have your rights violated is belligerence." "Objection," Henderson shouted. "Sustained," the judge said. But the damage was done. The first crack in the deputy's perfect story had appeared. Sarah asked for Officer Miller to be excused temporarily and called Deputy Davis to the stand. Davis seemed more nervous than his partner. His eyes darted around the room. "Deputy Davis," Sarah began, "your partner testified that you were both on patrol in the warehouse district at 10:15 p.m. Is that your recollection as well?" Davis hesitated. He glanced at the prosecutor, who gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. "Yes, that is correct. So you also disagree with the official GPS logs from your own vehicle?" "Like my partner said, sometimes the technology glitches." "I understand. Technology can be so unreliable," Sarah said with a hint of sarcasm that was not lost on the jury. "Let's move on. In your sworn statement, you claim you were the one who saw the package under the seat. Is that right?" "Yes, I saw it plain as day, and you immediately identified it as containing narcotics." "I've been a cop for 10 years, Davis said defensively. "I know what I'm looking for." "I'm sure you do," Sarah said. "Your Honor, could we have Officer Miller return to the courtroom?" Miller walked back in looking confused. Sarah turned to him. "Officer Miller, thank you for returning. I'd like to go back to your testimony. Who was it that first saw the package under the seat?" Miller, unaware of what his partner had just said, answered confidently, "I did. I saw it as soon as I shined my flashlight into the car." A murmur went through the jury box. The prosecutor, Henderson, put his head in his hands. Sarah let the contradiction hang in the air. "So, let me see if I have this right. Officer Miller, you claim you saw the package first, and Deputy Davis, you claimed that you saw it first. You were both standing on opposite sides of the car. It seems impossible for you both to be telling the truth." The two deputies looked at each other, a silent panic passing between them. "Unless," Sarah continued, her voice dropping, "the package wasn't found in the car at all. Unless perhaps the package was already in your possession before you even pulled my client over. Unless this entire stop was a setup from the beginning." "Objection! Speculation!" Henderson yelled, jumping to his feet. "I'm not speculating, Your Honor," Sarah said, turning to the judge. "I have proof." Sarah walked back to her table and picked up a thick file. "For the past 6 months, the FBI has been conducting an internal investigation into Sheriff Thompson's Department for Corruption, evidence tampering, and its connections to a local drug trafficking ring. My client, Mr. Foster, a mechanic who serviced the sheriff's private vehicles, discovered evidence of this ring and agreed to become a cooperating witness for the federal government." The courtroom erupted in chaos. The judge banged his gavel, demanding order. The deputies, Miller and Davis, looked as if they had seen a ghost. Sarah continued, her voice ringing with authority. "The anonymous tip that night was a fabrication. The drugs found in his car were planted by these two officers under orders from the sheriff in an attempt to silence a man they believed was about to expose them. They thought they were framing a simple mechanic." She paused, letting her words sink in. They had no idea they were walking directly into a federally monitored sting operation. She walked to the judge's bench and placed her credentials down. The gold letters gleamed under the courtroom lights. "Special Agent Sarah Jenkins, FBI. I was assigned this case as Mr. Foster's public defender to witness firsthand how this department manufactures evidence and lies under oath." The prosecutor was speechless. The judge stared at the badge, then at Sarah, then at the two deputies whose faces were pale with terror. "The audio you heard from my body camera wasn't the only recording that night," Sarah said, looking at Miller and Davis. "Every word, every action was monitored. The real trial, gentlemen, begins now, and you are the defendants." Judge Kirkland found his voice. He looked at the deputies with utter contempt. Case against Mr. Foster is dismissed with extreme prejudice. Deputies Miller and Davis, you are to be taken into custody immediately pending federal charges." As the bailiffs moved in, Sarah walked back to her client, David Foster, and placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's over," she said softly. He looked at her, tears of relief streaming down his face. Justice, which had for so long been hidden behind the face of an overwhelmed public defender, had finally shown its true powerful self. A courtroom must decide, the word of sworn officers or the questions of an underestimated defender. That day, the answer was clear. The truth doesn't care about a uniform or a badge. It only cares about the facts. And sometimes it takes a hidden warrior to bring those facts to light. If you believe these stories matter and want to see more powerful tales of justice being served, then join us. Subscribe to our channel, hit the like button to help this story reach more people, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a case where the powerful are brought to justice. Remember, the biggest changes start with a single voice that refuses to be silenced.